Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Distinguished guests, respected scholars, and beloved members of the AMEC family, my name is Zoha Zahid. I'm a part of Al-Mawrid Institute Canada since around 3 years. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to this very special iftar gathering hosted by Al-Mawrid Institute Canada. This evening is a celebration of our shared faith, our collective reflections, and the bonds that unite us together as a community. As we prepare to break our fast together, let us take a moment to appreciate the blessings of this sacred month and the opportunity it provides for us for spiritual growth and connection. We have a meaningful program ahead with enlightening discussions, an introduction to AMEC's vision, and of course, the joy of sharing iftar together. So to begin, I would like to invite the CEO of Al-Mawrid Institute Canada, Malik Faisal Aslam, to extend his heartfelt thanks to all of you for being here today and for your continued support in this shared mission.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Respected scholars, esteemed guests, and dear community members. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you can hear me well. It is an honor to welcome you all to this AMEC Family's Iftar gathering today. Ramadan is a time of reflection, spiritual renewal, and strengthening our connection with Allah. It is also the month of the Quran, a divine guidance meant to illuminate our lives. At Al-Mawrid Institute Canada, our mission is to make authentic Islamic knowledge accessible, fostering a deeper understanding of faith through education, dialogue, and research. From Quranic studies, from discovering Islam or discovering Islamic theologies and Arabic programs, to youth and interfaith initiatives, we strive to provide meaningful learning opportunities that strengthen our community. This evening, we are privileged to hear from Dr. Khalid Zahir and Professor Ali Zaidi, whose insights will inspire us in our journey of faith and understanding. I encourage you all to engage, reflect, and take part in the work we are doing together. A heartfelt thank you to our scholars, organizers, volunteers, and most importantly, to all of you for being here. May this gathering strengthen our bonds and bring us closer to the Quran and to each other. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Malik Faisal, for your warm welcome and for sharing AMEC's vision with us. Now, to give you a closer look at the work we do, we will be playing a short introductory video about Al-Mawrid Institute Canada, showcasing our educational initiatives, community programs, and the impact we strive to create. Let's take a moment to watch.
Just give me a second.
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। मुझे मालूम हुआ है कि अल-मौरिद कनाडा के अहबाब इफ्तार के सिलसिले में जमा हो रहे हैं। ये बड़ी खुशाइंद बात है। रमज़ान का महीना है। रमज़ान के इस महीने में ये सही करनी चाहिए कि हमारा ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा ताल्लुक़ अल्लाह की किताब के साथ उस्तवार हो। रमज़ान कुरान का महीना है। कुरान मजीद में तदब्बुर किया जाए, कुरान को पढ़ा जाए, कुरान मजीद हमारी ज़िंदगी का दस्तूर बने और हम इस लिहाज से उसका मुताला करना सीखें। मुझे बताया जाता रहा है कि हमारे अहबाब वहाँ इसी नौइयत की सरगर्मियों के लिए मुनज़्ज़म हुए हैं और मुख्तलिफ़ नौइयत के काम इसी मकसद को सामने रख कर करते रहते हैं। ये इफ्तार की मजलिस भी गालिबन इसी सिलसिले में मुनक़िद की गई है। मेरी दुआएं आपके साथ हैं। अल्लाह ताला इस काम में बरकत डाले और लोगों के दिल इसके लिए खोले और आप लोगों को तौफ़ीक दे कि आप अल्लाह ताला के साथ भी अपने ताल्लुक़ को मुहकम करें اور انسانیت کی خدمت کے لیے بھی اپنے دل میں سچا جذبہ پیدا کریں اور دین کے معلم بن کر زندگی بسر کریں۔ اللہ کے پیغمبر نے فرمایا ہے خیرکم من تعلم القرآن وعلمہ، تم میں سے بہترین لوگ وہی ہیں جو قرآن مجید سیکھتے ہیں اور قرآن مجید سکھاتے ہیں۔ یہ رمضان کا مہینہ قرآن مجید سیکھنے اور سکھانے ہی کا مہینہ ہے۔ میں یہ سمجھتا ہوں کہ آپ جو اہتمام بھی اس مہینے میں کریں گے وہ اللہ کی عنایت سے آپ کے لیے بڑی برکت اور بڑی سعادت کا باعث بنے گا۔
Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. As you all know that Al-Mawrid stands for critical thinking, academic excellence and dialogue in the realm of Islamic sciences. It was founded in 1983 by Ustaz Javed Ahmed Ghamidi, and Al-Mawrid Canada basically is an offshoot of this institution. Al-Mawrid Canada offers various courses including the Arabic language and various other aspects of Islam like the Quran, Hadith and the Sunnah. I personally have taken up the task of disseminating the message of the Quran to the younger generation in a way that they feel engaged, in the way they feel attached to the message of the Quran, so that they can become better human beings, so that if any confusion comes to their mind, they are able to resolve it, and at the same time, they are able to engage in dialogue and discussion with the contemporary world. And I'm happy to say that the students, they are very engaged, they are very inquisitive, they are our greatest hope, and hopefully, inshallah, if we are able to continue in this manner, we will be able to educate them on the Quran and, of course, on how to become better human beings.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Khalid Zahir. I'm a part of Al-Mawrid Institute of Canada, AMIC, which is an institute that is involved in the task of disseminating the message of Islam through education. It's engaged in this task for the last 6 years. Malik Faisal Aslam is responsible for arranging all the programs that take place. We have a number of educational programs that we continue to pursue. Many of them are online, but some of them are also held in person. For example, I am personally taking a regular class by the name of Discovering Islam. It's in English. It takes place every Sunday from 1:30 p.m. onwards. I present different concepts of Islam through the arguments that are there in the Quran and Hadith. And there is an open atmosphere where we have questions, answers, and discussions. I'm also taking a few other classes online in Urdu. There is one that I take on Saturdays from 10 to 11 a.m. There is another class that I take on Thursdays from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. AMIC is looking at other possibilities of spreading the message of Islam as well. We look forward to your cooperation and your blessings. May the Almighty enable us to do this task in the right spirit and in the best possible manner.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. معزز حاضرین کرام، السلام علیکم۔ آپ لوگ یہ جانتے ہیں کہ المورد مولانا حمید الدین فراہی، ان کے تلمیذ رشید امین حسن اصلاحی اور پھر ان کے شاگرد رشید جاوید احمد صاحب غامدی کے جو انہوں نے اس اصول کے تحت دریافت کیا کہ خالص دین، اللہ کے خالص دین کو جاننا چاہیے اور اسے دنیا میں پھیلانا چاہیے۔ اب اللہ کے فضل و کرم سے بہت مختلف ممالک میں پچھلے چند برسوں میں ادارے بھی ہمارے برانچز قائم ہو چکی ہیں۔ کینیڈا کا یہ سینٹر جہاں آپ لوگ تشریف فرما ہیں، یہ بھی اسی سلسلے کا ایک کڑی ہے اور آپ لوگ اسی تحریک کا حصہ ہیں جو اب نصف صدی سے 1.5 صدی سے کہنا چاہیے، المورد تو نصف صدی سے کام کر رہا ہے لیکن مولانا فراہی کی تحریک کو شامل کرتے ہوئے 1.5 صدی کا عرصہ کہنا چاہیے آپ اس تحریک کا حصہ ہیں۔ امید کرتا ہوں کہ آپ لوگوں کی جو اس ادارے کے ساتھ علمی، جو لوگ یہاں تعلیم و تدریس کا کام کر رہے ہیں، کچھ لوگ یہاں عملی طور پر تعاون کر رہے ہوں گے اور کچھ لوگ مالی طور پر تعاون کر رہے ہوں گے، یہ سب لوگ انشاءاللہ خدا کے ہاں اجر پائیں گے اور اس کام کی ترویج میں وہ اپنی خدمات کو پیش کر رہے ہیں۔ تو اللہ تعالیٰ ان کو حوصلہ دے، توفیق دے۔ انشاءاللہ اللہ تعالیٰ ہماری ان مسائی کو قبول کرے گا اور کل قیامت والے دن ہمارے لیے نجات کا ذریعہ بنے گا۔ آمین ثم آمین۔
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔ آپ تمام احباب کی خدمت میں آداب۔ مجھے بڑی خوشی اور مسرت محسوس ہو رہی ہے آپ لوگوں سے مخاطب ہو کے، المورد کینیڈا کے وہ احباب یہاں پر موجود ہیں جن کے ساتھ مجھے بھی کچھ وقت گزارنے کا موقع ملا۔ میں خود بھی کینیڈا آیا اور وہاں پر میں نے ہمارا ادارہ المورد کے تحت ہونے والی علمی فکری سرگرمیوں میں شامل ہو کے اس دعوت اور اس مشن کا حصہ بننے کی سعادت حاصل کی، جس کا بنائی طور پہ ایک ہی نصب العین، ایک ہی ہدف ہے، اور وہ یہ کہ دنیا بھر میں موجود انسانوں کو اللہ کے دین کی طرف بلائیں اور اللہ کے دین کا صحیح علمی شعوری مطالعہ ان تک پہنچائیں۔ فکر فراہی کی یہی بنیاد ہے، یہی دبستان شبلی کا خواب تھا جس کو استاد جناب جاوید احمد غامدی صاحب نے اس طرح کے ادارے وجود پذیر کر کے شرمندہ تعبیر کیا ہے۔ ان مقاصد کو سامنے رکھتے ہوئے جو کچھ دینی علمی فکری کام ہو رہا ہے، میری ہمیشہ سے نیک تمنائیں اور تائید اس کے ساتھ ہے، اور میں دنیا بھر میں موجود لوگوں سے بھی یہ درخواست کرتا ہوں کہ اگر ہم نے اپنے بچوں کو، اپنی نسلوں کو مذہب کے ساتھ جوڑے رکھنا ہے تو اس کا ناگزیر تقاضا ہے کہ دین کا شعوری مطالعہ انہیں کروایا جائے۔ شعوری مطالعے کا مطلب یہ ہوتا ہے کہ سنی سنائی باتیں، قصے، کہانیاں، روایات کے زیر اثر چیزوں کی جو پرسیپشن قائم کر لی جاتی ہے ان کو ختم کیا جائے، متس کو ریزن سے تبدیل کیا جائے، اور فیکٹس کے زیر اہتمام دین کو سمجھا جائے۔ اس پس منظر میں جو کچھ مساعی، جو کچھ خیش المورد کینیڈا کر رہا ہے، ہماری دعائیں بھی اس کے ساتھ ہیں اور نیک توقعات اور تمنائیں بھی ہیں کہ اللہ تعالیٰ اس میں مزید وسعت دے، فروغ دے، اور جو کچھ خدمت ہم اس ادارے کی کر سکتے ہیں انشاءاللہ کرتے رہیں گے۔
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔ فیبرری 2023 میں المعرض کے ایک ایجوکیشنل انیشیٹو کے ساتھ ہم نے لائف سکلز پر کانورسیشنز کا آغاز کیا تھا۔ اس میں کوئی بھی چیز جو تھی اٹ واز ناٹ پری ڈیسائیڈڈ کہ ہم نے کس طرح سے یہ کرنا ہے اور اس کے ٹاپکس کیا ہوں گے، بلکہ سوچا یہ تھا کہ اس کو ہم ایوالو ہونے دیں گے، لوگوں کی گفتگوؤں سے اس کے ٹاپکس کو ڈٹرمن کریں گے۔ ایک اخلاقی اور مورل بینگ کی حیثیت سے انسان اپنی پیدائش اور اپنے شعور کے بعد مذہب سے آشنا ہونے سے پہلے بھی رسپانسبل ہے کہ وہ ایک اخلاقی زندگی گزارے۔ میری نظر میں یہ جو ٹاپکس ہیں ان کی اہمیت بہت زیادہ ہے، اور میں یہ سمجھتا ہوں کہ ان کو بہت عام کرنے کی ضرورت ہے۔ آج جس وقت ہم اپنی قوم کو، مسلمانوں کو ان جنرل جب دیکھتے ہیں، ہمارے کردار اور ہمارے اخلاق کے اندر ایک جنرل جو ڈیٹیریشن ہمیں نظر آتی ہے، اور یہی وہ چیز تھی کہ جس نے مجھے اس طرف آمادہ کیا کہ میں اس چیز کو سمجھوں اپنے حوالے سے سب سے پہلے، تاکہ اپنی کمیوں کو ٹھیک کرنے کی کوشش کروں، اور پھر دوسروں کی اگر کوئی ہیلپ کر سکتا ہوں تو وہ کروں۔ المعرض کینیڈا کے ساتھ بھی اور المعرض جنرلی بھی انشاءاللہ مجھے پوری امید ہے کہ ہم آگے بھی کام کرتے رہیں گے، اور اللہ نے چاہا تو we'll bring up more programs of the same kind and as per the requirements of the participants انشاءاللہ۔ آپ سب سے دعاؤں کی درخواست ہے جی۔ بہت شکریہ۔ السلام علیکم۔
میرا نام فرحان سید ہے اینڈ آئی ایم ایگزیکٹو ڈائریکٹر آف المورد یو ایس اینڈ رامدی سینٹر آف اسلامک لرننگ۔ المورد کینیڈا اور المورد یو ایس کا بہت ہی گہرا تعلق ہے ہمیشہ سے، سنس دیئر انسیپشن۔ ایک دوسرے کے ساتھ بہت اچھی کولیبریشن کرتے ہیں، بہت سارے پروجیکٹس میں دوسرے کے ساتھ کام کرتے ہیں، تو بہت ایکٹیو، موسٹ ایکٹیو جو ہمارا سینٹر ہے ان میں سے ایک سینٹر ہم المورد کینیڈا کو سمجھیں گے۔ تو میں بہت ساری نیک تمنائیں آپ سب لوگوں کے لیے، اور امید ہے کہ ہم اسی طرح یہ فکر فراہی کے اس مشن کو لے کے شانہ بشانہ کام کرتے رہیں گے، اور اللہ تعالیٰ آپ سب کو سلامت رکھے، اور بہت ساری نیک تمناؤں کے ساتھ۔ السلام علیکم۔
My name is Mushfiq Sultan, and I'm associated with Al-Mawrid as an assistant fellow, and I handle Al-Mawrid's query service where we answer questions that we receive from people around the world. I'm honored to be associated with Al-Mawrid Institute Canada. I find the mindset of AMIC very welcoming and cooperative. This institute is dedicated to scholarly research, to education. I've had the privilege of participating in some of their youth sessions and youth discussion group, and I've found it to be a space of meaningful discussions, and they've always encouraged young people, young Muslims, and that is very inspiring. Particularly, I have found the attitude of Brother Malik Faisal and Brother Sean to be very inspiring. They are very warm people and inclusive in all their projects, in their endeavors. On this blessed occasion of Iftar, I pray to Allah that may Allah grant barakah in all their endeavors, that may Allah enable them to grow and continue to support the wider community. Jazakumullahu khair and Ramadan Mubarak.
المعرض بنیادی طور پہ ایک تعلیمی ادارہ ہے، اس میں ہم پڑھنے پڑھانے کا کام کرتے ہیں، تعلیم و تعلم کا، درس و تدریس کا، خود بھی پڑھتے ہیں، لوگوں کو بھی پڑھاتے ہیں، اور اس میں ہمارا مقصد جو ہے وہ یہی ہے کہ ہم دین اور دینی علوم میں تفریق لوگوں کو ایجوکیٹ کریں کہ دین کیا ہے اور دینی علوم کیا ہے، اور ان کو کرٹیکلی سوچنے کی طرف ہم آمادہ کریں۔ ہم مختلف پروجیکٹس پہ کام کرتے رہتے ہیں۔ آج کل ہم ایکٹیولی 5 پروجیکٹس پہ کام کر رہے ہیں۔ سب سے اہم پروجیکٹ ہمارا ظاہر ایجوکیشنل پروجیکٹ ہے۔ ایجوکیشنل پروجیکٹس میں ہم آن لائن کلاسز پڑھاتے ہیں، ان پرسن کلاسز بھی ہوتی ہیں۔ یہ آپ کے سامنے سینٹر ہے ہمارا مسیساگا میں، یہ موجود ہے 211 واٹ لائن ایوینیو پہ۔ یہاں پہ ہماری ان پرسن کلاسز ہوتی ہیں، اور اس کے علاوہ آن لائن کورسز بھی جو ہے وہ المورد جو ہے کنڈکٹ کرتا ہے۔ یہ ہمارا سب سے اہم پروجیکٹ یہی ہے۔
That each chapter starts off with a chunk of Meccan surahs, and then there's a chunk of Medinan surahs.
Whole overarching message of the Quran is like the judgment being pronounced.
Okay, Shazib, Zil-Rihab, Aisha, Navera, is the issue of cloning. So should I go and stop them forcibly or not?
In my opinion, wouldn't make sense both from an Islamic standpoint and from legal standpoint.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a quick question. Did this rule also apply to the prophets themselves?
Al-Rahman is like Allah is the owner of like vast mercy, the owner of mercy that encompasses his creation.
If you think that you're attracted to the same gender, God gave you the power to have feelings, but it's how you act on
If someone has feelings for the same gender, what he or she would do. Okay, Zara, can you please read the text?
Master, give an order to my brother and make division.
Aisha
to reflect on ourselves, understand what Allah expects from us.
and Zara.
Acknowledging that this life is temporary and it's a test for us, submitting to a greater cause, which is, and doing your best to help people.
المورد انسٹیٹیوٹ کا مشکور ہوں کہ جنہوں نے مجھے یہ موقع فراہم کیا، ایک پلیٹ فارم فراہم کیا، اور ہم اس کے اندر اپلائیڈ عربک لینگویج پڑھاتے ہیں. رمضان شریف میں نے ایک یہ پروگرام بھی شروع کیا ہے. ترتیب نزولی کے اعتبار سے گزارش ہے اپنے سب قارئین سے اور جو لوگ مجھے دیکھ رہے ہیں کہ آپ لوگ کوشش کریں مصحف مدینہ کا اسکرپٹ پڑھا کریں. السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ.
My name is Barrister Zahid Bashir. I've been associated with Al-Mawrid since 2017. I have been teaching Arabic courses and the Life of Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam course to youngsters for the last 6 years now. Learning the language of Quran is very important for everyone, especially the youngsters. We can understand Quran as we recite and we can enjoy the beautiful diction of Quran.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Siddiqa Sadiq and I teach communication skills at Al-Mawrid, Canada. Most of our learning happens on WhatsApp, where we practice English in real-life situations. We also hold regular Zoom meetings, helping learners improve their English for work, academics, or IELTS. If you're looking to boost your English confidence level, please join us at Al-Mawrid, Canada.
اس کے علاوہ اس کے علاوہ آپ سمجھیں کہ ادر لرننگ انیشیٹیوز کے تحت جو ہے ڈفرینٹ پروجیکٹس ہیں جو ہم نے اسی پر ایک کور فوکس کرنے کے لیے ڈفرینٹ سیگمنٹس بنائے ہیں. آپ یوں کہنے کہ وہ 4 سیگمنٹس ہیں، یہ بھی تعلیمی پرپز کے لیے. ایک سینئرس کا ایک فورم ہے جس میں ناظم الدین صاحب اس کو لیڈ کرتے ہیں اور مختلف ایکٹیویٹیز اس میں وہ کرتے رہتے ہیں. سال میں ہر سال وہ نئے ٹاپکس کے ساتھ آتے ہیں.
2023 میں المورڈ انسٹیٹیوٹ کینیڈا کی تعلیمی، سماجی اور دینی سرگرمیوں کو اگر پیش نظر رکھا جائے تو میں یہ کہہ سکتا ہوں کہ 2024 میں ہم ایک قدم آگے بڑھے ہیں. آئیے میں آپ کو ان تمام سرگرمیوں کے متعلق بتاتا ہوں جو 2024 میں ہم نے کی تھی. المورڈ انسٹیٹیوٹ کینیڈا نے جب 11 فروری 2024 کو اپنے نئے تعلیمی سیشن کا آغاز کیا تو اس موقع پر طے ہوا کہ سینئرز کے لیے باقاعدہ ایک گروپ تشکیل دے کر اس میں ان کے مسائل پر گفتگو کی جائے. ان کی علمی اور فکری تربیت کے ساتھ ساتھ ذہنی اور تفریحی مشاغل بھی شامل کیے جائیں. نیو ہورائزن سینئرز پروگرام کے تحت یہ طے ہوا کہ ہر مہینے کسی ایک موضوع پر گفتگو ہوگی اور اس کے ساتھ ہی المورڈ کینیڈا بھی اپنا ایک پروگرام پیش کرے گا. مارچ 2024 میں رمضان کی مناسبت سے المورڈ کے آفس میں سینئرز کے ساتھ ساتھ جنرل باڈی کے ارکان کے اعزاز میں افطار پارٹی کا اہتمام کیا گیا. دوست جمع ہوئے، گپ شپ ہوئی اور طے ہوا کہ اپریل کے مہینے میں فیملیز کے ساتھ عید ملن پارٹی رکھی جائے گی.
April 2024.
21 اپریل 2024 کو المورڈ نے عید ملن کا اہتمام کیا. فیملیز کے ساتھ ساتھ المورڈ کے دوستوں نے بھی بھرپور شرکت کی. ابتدا میں سینئرز کے لیے ایک ورک شاپ کا انعقاد کیا گیا جس میں کمپیوٹر پروگرامر شاہد امین ملک نے فنڈامنٹلز آف ڈیجیٹل لٹریسی پر بات کی. سوال جواب ہوئے اور پھر عید کی مناسبت سے دیگر تفریح پروگرام کیے گئے.
May 2024.
نیو ہورائزن سینئر پروگرام کے تحت اس بار ورک شاپ کا موضوع کمیونیکیشن اینڈ ورلڈ اراؤنڈ اس رکھا گیا اور اس پر کمپیوٹر انجینئر، ادیب، فعال سماجی کارکن جناب برہان الحق صاحب نے گفتگو کی. برہان بھائی المورڈ انسٹیٹیوٹ کینیڈا کے اہم رکن اور اثاثہ ہیں. المورڈ انسٹیٹیوٹ کی جانب سے IPC یعنی اسلامک پروپیگیشن سینٹر سینئرز گروپ کے روح رواں حامد اکبر نے کینیڈا میں والنٹیئرزم کی اہمیت پر خطاب کیا.
June 2024.
کینیڈا کی شدید سردیاں گزارنے کے بعد جون کا مہینہ ہم سب میں نئی توانائی اور جولانی لے کر آتا ہے. ہمارے سینئرز اور بزرگ بھلا کہاں پیچھے رہنے والے تھے. لہٰذا ان کی اصرار پر المورڈ کینیڈا کے سینئر فورم نے 23 جون 2024 کو ایرنڈیل پارک میں ایک پکنک کا اہتمام کیا. اس موقع پر المورڈ کے دینی اسکالر جناب خالد ظہیر نے اسلام میں تفریحی سرگرمیوں کے حوالے سے گفتگو کی.
July 2024.
حسب معمول جولائی میں بھی 2 پروگرام رکھے گئے. نیو ہورائزن سینئرز پروگرام کی ورکشاپ سے نازش عابد نے خطاب کیا. ان کا موضوع تھا بیلنس فوڈ اکارڈنگ ٹو ہیلتھ کینیڈا گائیڈ لائنز. اس کے بعد المورڈ انسٹیٹیوٹ کینیڈا نے ایک بہت اچھی اور شاندار वर्कशॉप का एहतमाम किया। इस वर्कशॉप का मौजू था एम्पावरिंग फैमिलीज। सबसे पहले मुनिज़्ज़ा अब्बासी ने फैमिली डायनेमिक्स नेविगेटिंग पर गुफ्तगू की और इसके बाद एक टर्किश खातून साहवर ओजुंगलो ओगलू की गुफ्तगू का मौजू था ब्रेकिंग द साइलेंस, इट्स टाइम टू टॉक। इन दोनों खवातीन की गुफ्तगू के बाद एक पैनल डिस्कशन भी हुई।
अगस्त 2024।
अगस्त के महीने में न्यू होराइजन सीनियर्स प्रोग्राम की वर्कशॉप का मौजू था बी अ स्टार ऑफ ए पार्टी और इस पर गुफ्तगू की गजल मलिक साहिबा ने। इसके बाद स्टैनफोर्ड यूनिवर्सिटी से फारिग तहसील स्कॉलर हमीद सिद्दीकी ने हाजरीन से खिताब किया। वो खुसूसी तौर पर शिकागो से कनाडा आए थे। हमीद सिद्दीकी ने मुख्तलिफ तफासिर का गहरा मुताला करने के बाद अपनी किताब द क्लियर साइंस ऑफ द कुरान लिखी है, जिसमें उन्होंने मुख्तलिफ कुरानी वाक़यात का साइंसी तौजीहात की रोशनी में जायजा लिया है। हमीद साहब ने किताब का एक नुस्खा अल-मौरिद की लाइब्रेरी के लिए फैसल मलिक को पेश किया।
सितंबर 2024।
रिटायरमेंट के बाद इंसानी जिंदगी के मामूलात में बहुत सी तब्दीलियां आ जाती हैं। चुनांचे अल-मौरिद सीनियर्स फोरम ने जनाब आमिर अख्तर को दावत दी कि वो सीनियर्स को बताएं कि किस तरह इन तब्दीलियों का सामना किया जाए। उनका मौजू था री इंजीनियर योर कैरियर। इसके बाद कुरानिक स्टडी सर्किल और अल-मौरिद के साथी अनवार कुरैशी ने अपने इल्म व दानिश के मोती बिखेरे और सबर और शुक्र का सूरह असर की रोशनी में जायजा लिया।
अक्टूबर 2024।
अल-मौरिद ने निज़ाम खानकाही की तजदीद की है। अक्टूबर 2024 में दोस्तों ने मशवरा दिया कि ब्लू माउंटेन रिजॉर्ट चला जाए और वहां 3 रोज क़याम किया जाए। सबने तय किया कि डॉक्टर खालिद ज़हीर तज़कीर बिल कुरान और फिक्र फराही, जबकि जनाब फैसल मलिक इक़बालियात पर बात करेंगे। इसके अलावा गिरदोनवा में मुशाहिदाती दौरे भी किए जाएंगे। यही नहीं, आपस में तबादला ख्याल करके एक दूसरे के तजर्बे से आगाही भी हासिल की जाएगी।
नवंबर 2024।
नवंबर का महीना हमें अल्लामा इकबाल की याद दिलाता है। चुनांचे इस हवाले से अल-मौरिद ने यौम इकबाल का इंतजाम किया। अल-मौरिद के स्कॉलर डॉक्टर खालिद ज़हीर ने उनके कलाम के चंद अहम गोशों पर गुफ्तगू की। इसके बाद आमिर अख्तर ने अल्लामा इकबाल के कलाम में मौसीकियत के अंसुर पर अपनी तहकीक पेश की। उन्होंने बड़े दिलचस्प अंदाज में हाजरीन को उनका माजी याद दिलाया और लब पे आती है दुआ उन सब से पढ़वाई।
तो हमारी असेंबली का आगाज हुआ चाहता है। लब पे आती है दुआ बन के तमन्ना मेरी।
अरे हाँ, मैं तो भूल गया कि न्यू होराइजन सीनियर्स प्रोग्राम के तहत मरियम हया ने सीनियर्स को बताया कि वो अपनी याददाश्त को कैसे बरकरार रख सकते हैं और इसे बढ़ा सकते हैं।
So what is dementia, this broad category of dementia?
दिसंबर 2024।
दिसंबर के महीने में 2023 की रिवायत को आगे बढ़ाते हुए अल-मौरिद ने दूसरा सालाना मुशायरे का इनेकाद किया। इस मुशायरे में बैनुल अक़वामी शोहरत याफ्ता शोरा ने अपना कलाम सुनाया। कराची से सलीम कौसर, लंदन से आबिद अली बेग, अमेरिका से मुना शहाब, फरहान सैयद और याकूब तसव्वुद शामिल थे। कनाडा के मारूफ शोरा ने भी अपना कलाम पेश किया। मुशायरे की सदारत जनाब करामत कौरी ने की और इसकी निजामत जनाब तारिक हुसैन ने की। अल-मौरिद सीनियर्स फोरम का इस महीने का मौजू था लेट अस लर्न फ्रॉम ईच अदर।
जनवरी 2025।
इस महीने के पहले सेशन में सीनियर्स फोरम और NHSP वर्कशॉप का मौजू सीनियर्स के लिए बहुत अहम था। इसका उन्वान था एल्डर अब्यूज कैन ड्रेन यू। इस मौजू पर जनाब हाशिम तकवी ने बात की। दूसरा सेशन अल-मौरिद और अल्लामा इकबाल इंटरनेशनल सोसाइटी के इश्तराक से हुआ। इसमें जनाब फैसल मलिक ने अल्लामा इकबाल की मशहूर नज़म हुजूर रिसालत माआब में की तफ़हीम और इसके फलसफियाना पहलुओं पर गुफ्तगू की।
फरवरी 2025।
रमजान की आमद से चंद दिन पहले इस्तक़बाल रमजान के उन्वान से अल-मौरिद इंस्टीट्यूट कनाडा के हेड ऑफिस में एक तकरीब का एहतमाम किया गया। इसका मकसद रमजान के महीने को दीन की हिदायत के मुताबिक तैयारी कराना था। ख़वातीन और हज़रात ने बड़ी तादाद में शिरकत फरमाई। डॉक्टर खालिद ज़हीर ने अपनी तकरीर के बाद सवालात के जवाब भी दिए। सीनियर फोरम की वर्कशॉप का मौजू था फाइल योर टैक्सेस रिस्पॉन्सिबली। उमैर हसन ने इस मौजू पर गुफ्तगू की। तो जनाब, आपने देखा कि अल-मौरिद इंस्टीट्यूट कनाडा के सीनियर फोरम ने 12 महीनों में बाज़ाब्ता तौर पे देखें तो 24 प्रोग्राम तो बनते हैं। तो जनाब, अब आप ये फैसला कीजिए और बताइए कि क्या वाकई हम एक कदम आगे बढ़े हैं। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया।
और इसमें यहाँ मैं ज़रूर जिक्र करना चाहूँगा कि गवर्नमेंट ऑफ कनाडा के ताउन से भी हम एक न्यू होराइजन प्रोजेक्ट है, न्यू होराइजन सीनियर्स प्रोजेक्ट, वो भी उसके ताउन से हम सीनियर्स के ख़ास प्रोग्राम जो हैं वो कंडक्ट करते हैं। सेकंड हमारा जो है वो विमेन ग्रुप है, उसको सिद्दीका सादिक लीड करती हैं।
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Siddiqa Sadiq, and I'm the director of the Women's Group at Al-Mawrid Institute, Canada. Over the past year, we've had the privilege of organizing insightful sessions with esteemed scholars like Mrs. Kokab Shehzad, Dr. Khalid Zahir, and Amir Yazdani Saab. We also hosted an interfaith session with a priest from the Evangelical Church and collaborated on an event focused on empowering families. Additionally, we interviewed inspiring women to highlight their incredible contributions to the community.
वो सफा पे भाग के चढ़ते और देखते कि मेरे अल्लाह के लिए ये जगह ज्यादा मुनासिब है कुर्बानी करने के लिए.
Working with plenty of children.
Every, autistic kid is the same.
But yeah, my biggest support had been, I should say, and there's a story behind that.
उसके अलावा हम एक यंग एडल्ट्स का एक ग्रुप है, शान शेख उनको लीड करते हैं, और डिफरेंट एक्टिविटीज़ जिसमें फन एंड लर्न वगैरह की एक्टिविटीज़ होती रहती हैं। अल-मौरिद इंस्टीट्यूट कनाडा का जो यंग एडल्ट्स का ग्रुप है जिसको डॉक्टर शान शेख लीड करते हैं, उसमें भी पिछले 3-4 सालों में बहुत एजुकेशनल एक्टिविटीज़ और इवेंट्स जो हैं कंडक्ट किए गए हैं। उसमें ख़ास तौर पे एजुकेशनल इवेंट्स हैं, उसके अलावा सोशल एंड रिक्रिएशनल इवेंट्स हैं, और फिर कम्युनिटी एंड रिलीजियस गैदरिंग्स का भी एहतमाम किया गया था। ऑनलाइन लर्निंग सेशंस होते हैं जिसमें डिफरेंट टॉपिक्स डिस्कस किए जाते हैं स्कॉलर्स के साथ। फिर कुछ होम गैदरिंग्स होती हैं, डिफरेंट घरों में किया जाता है, किसी एक स्कॉलर को इन्वाइट कर लिया जाता है। मॉस्क गैदरिंग्स भी होती हैं, जैसे हम डॉक्टर शबीर अली जो हमारे टोरंटो के बहुत नामवर स्कॉलर हैं, उनके साथ हमने मस्जिद में कुछ वक्त गुजारा था, क्वेश्चन आंसर का एक सेशन किया था। 2 साल पहले गालिबन डॉक्टर शहजाद सलीम के साथ शॉर्ट कोर्सेज का एहतमाम किया था। डॉक्टर शहजाद वहाँ से पाकिस्तान से आए थे, 3 दिन तक शॉर्ट कोर्सेज किए थे, यंगस्टर्स को मद्देनजर रखते हुए, उनकी ज़रूरियात को, उनके सवालात को मद्देनजर रखते हुए। फिर लीज के साथ एक डिस्कशन हुई थी, वो एजुकेशनिस्ट हैं और स्पेशलिस्ट हैं एजुकेशन के हवाले से और सेक्स एजुकेशन के हवाले से, ये एक सेमिनार हुआ था उनके साथ। उसके अलावा डॉक्टर जुल्फ़िकार अली शाह के साथ इस्लामिक स्कॉलरशिप पे बहुत अच्छा यहाँ पे एक सेमिनार हमने करवाया था इन पर्सन। फिर शेख गौरी के साथ जो जर्मनी के स्कॉलर हैं, हमने ऑनलाइन उनके साथ स्पिरिचुअल एंड थियोलॉजिकल डिस्कशंस की थी। इसी तरह इमाम जवाद हमारे लोकल इमाम हैं, उनके साथ भी एक कम्युनिटी एंगेजमेंट और इस्लामिक टीचिंग के हवाले से अच्छा सेशन रहा था। पिछले साल हमने बीच पार्टी का एक एहतमाम किया था यहाँ हैमिल्टन के करीब, और वहाँ पे यंगस्टर्स ने बहुत इंजॉय किया। इसी तरह बारबेक्यू पार्टीज तो अक्सर हम करते रहते हैं। पिछले महीने बॉयज़ डे आउट हमने किया था एक विद यंग मैन, हमने ट्यूबिंग एडवेंचर किया था। उसके बाद फिर हम स्कॉलर डॉक्टर खालिद ज़हीर साहब के साथ हमने एक बहुत इंसाइटफुल सेशन किया था। मूवी नाइट का भी एक दफ़ा एहतमाम किया था, वॉचिंग एंड एनालाइजिंग मीनिंगफुल फिल्म्स टुगेदर। टोरंटो आइलैंड, जैसे मैंने अर्ज़ किया, आइलैंड पे डॉक्टर शहजाद सलीम जब पाकिस्तान से आए थे तो आइलैंड का विजिट किया था हमने, वहाँ पे हमने गेम्स भी खेली थी, और उसके बाद एक बहुत ही इंसाइटफुल सेशन हुआ था। यंग एडल्ट्स का ग्रुप जो है वो भी काफ़ी बिजी और काफ़ी एक्टिव ग्रुप है, और एक यूथ का ग्रुप है जो 13 ईयर्स उनके लिए, आयशा उसको लीड करती हैं।
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Aisha Rahman and I'm honored to represent the youth group of Al-Mawrid. This past year we've been committed to creating meaningful conversations, spreading knowledge, and strengthening our community. One of our biggest focuses has been creating engaging content. So far, we've created Q&A videos to address common questions about Islam in an accessible way, produced special Ramadan videos to inspire and educate during the holy month, and released videos highlighting the experiences of Canadian Muslims and shedding light on our unique challenges and contributions. I'd like to announce that Al-Mawrid Canada now has its first ever game. This game is fun for all ages and is available right here. Forbidden words. You have 1 minute to get your partner to guess the word in blue on your card. You cannot say the words that in red, so someone from the other team must make sure you don't say the forbidden words. In 1 minute, you keep playing cards, as long as your team keeps guessing correctly. If you pass, then it's the other team's turn. Alhamdulillah, it's been a fulfilling year and I look forward to expanding our impact even further.
तो ये 4 सेगमेंट्स हैं, इसमें हम डिफरेंट जो है वो एजुकेशनल इनिशिएटिव्स, डिफरेंट लर्निंग एक्टिविटीज़ जो है वो होती हैं। तो ये 2 प्रोजेक्ट्स मैंने आपको बताए। एक इसके अलावा जो सबसे अहम प्रोजेक्ट है वो आप यूँ कह लें कि कम्युनिटी बिल्डिंग एक्टिविटीज़ हम उसमें करते हैं। उसमें आप यूँ कह लें कि हम एजुकेशनल सेमिनार्स करवाते हैं, पैनल डिस्कशंस होती हैं, कॉन्फ्रेंसेस होती हैं, डिफरेंट यूनिवर्सिटीज़ से हम प्रोफेसर्स को और डिफरेंट स्कॉलर्स को हम इनवाइट करते हैं, और अल-मौरिद के स्कॉलर्स के साथ मुकालमे होते हैं, पैनल डिस्कशंस होती हैं। और उसके अलावा कुछ फ़न एंड लर्न की एक्टिविटीज़ भी होती हैं, जैसे आप ये इफ्तार डिनर हम करते हैं हर साल लाजमी। इसी तरह फैमिलीज़ अल-मौरिद की जमा होती हैं तो हम ईद मिलन का एक लाजमी प्रोग्राम करते हैं साल में कम से कम एक दफ़ा।
अस्सलामु अलैकुम, मेरा नाम अब्दुल्ला है और आज मैं आपको एक कहानी सुनाऊंगा। एक दफ़ा का जिक्र था कि एक मुर्गी के 2 बच्चे थे, एक का नाम था वो दोनों ट्विन थे।
दूसरे का नाम समझा, एक का नाम क्या था?
एक का नाम था वो दोनों ट्रेन थे, जब हो गई कब लाती थी तो आ जाता था, जब कब लाती थी तो आ जाता था। अम्मी बहुत परेशान हो गई, अम्मी डॉक्टर के पास गई, अम्मी ने कहा कि जब मैं कब लाता हूँ तो आ जाते, कब लाता हूँ तो आ जाते। डॉक्टर ने कहा ये तो बहुत आसान है। अमृत ने कहा क्या? डॉक्टर ने कहा आप का नाम रखते और का नाम रखते।
और एक प्रोजेक्ट हमारा जो मैंने चूँकि बताया 5 प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं, चौथा प्रोजेक्ट हमारा जो है वो रिट्रीट्स का है। उसमें हम ये करते हैं कि हम साल में एक दफ़ा कम से कम 3 या 4 रातों के लिए हम आउट ऑफ सिटी जाते हैं, पूरा ग्रुप ऑफ पीपल, हमारे अल-मौरिद के जो लोग होते हैं, वहाँ पे हम एक तरह से ये तामीरी और तज़कीरी नोयत की एक क़याम होता है, और स्कॉलर्स भी हमारे साथ होते हैं, वहाँ पे भी हम फ़न करते हैं, लर्न भी करते हैं, और उसमें अल्लाह ताला की याद को अपने दिलों में ताज़ा करते हैं।
रिट्रीट के उन्वान से निज़ाम खानकाही के अहया की रिवायत को जिंदा करने के लिए हम 2023 में पहली बार ब्लू माउंटेन रिजॉर्ट गए। अक्टूबर 2024 में एक बार फिर अहबाब की मुशावरत से ब्लू माउंटेन रिजॉर्ट का क़सद किया गया, जहाँ 3 रोज़ा क़याम का एहतमाम हुआ। इज्तिमा में तय पाया कि डॉक्टर खालिद ज़हीर तज़कीर बिल कुरान और फ़िक्र फराही के इल्मी सफ़र पर इजहार ख्याल करेंगे।
और आखिरी हमारा जो प्रोजेक्ट जिस पे हम एक्टिवली काम कर रहे हैं वो है आउटरीच एंड इंटरफेथ के हवाले से। उसमें हमारा दावा ग्रुप है जो रिसेंटली एस्टैब्लिश हुआ है।
We begin in the name of the God. We normally start our proceedings by making this statement which is in the Quran.
I think I have some answer to give you. I'm not sure if it's in that first session or.
और उसमें हम इंटरफेथ डायलॉग करवाते हैं। एक डायलॉग अब तक हम कंडक्ट कर चुके हैं।
You know, if you follow the text of the Quran, you're expected to do is to appreciate, to marvel at the brilliance of the creation of the Almighty.
It's a little bit harder, I think, for us here. There's intergenerational differences.
इसमें जो एक मैं समझता हूँ बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट सिग्निफिकेंट जो एलिमेंट है वो ये है कि हम कुरान मजीद की फ्री कॉपीज जो है वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करते हैं नॉन मुस्लिम्स तक।
My name is Zahid Bashir. I'm blessed to be a part of Al-Mawrid Canada Dawa Group. A key initiative is our free Quran distribution project. Alhamdulillah, we have successfully shared hundreds of copies with non-Muslim across the Canada.
My name is Abid Bashir, and I have the privilege of serving as the chair of the board of directors at Al-Mawrid Institute Canada. I invite you to become a member of our growing community. Your support, whether through membership or donations, help us continue spreading authentic Islamic knowledge and building a stronger, more informed community.
तो ये वो प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं जो अल-मौरिद इस वक्त एक्टिवली करवा रहा है।
Join us at Al-Mawrid Institute Canada and become a member. Thank you.
I hope that video gave you all a deeper understanding of AMEC's mission and the initiatives we are working on. Now, we would like to give a special thank you to the incredible hardworking volunteers without whom these events would not be possible.
Once again, thank you so much for your patience. I know the video was quite long. We are working on to reduce it soon. And I want some more patience from you. Bear with us. We have to give some certificates to our volunteers. I request, yeah, this is month of patience. You are right. I need one volunteer to make photographs. I request some volunteers to come on the stage and I give certificates. I need, Amir bhai, if you can come here, please.
You mention a name, it doesn't remain volunteer.
So, first of all, I request Dr. Khalid Zahir to come here to give the certificates. Clapping for Dr. Khalid Zahir. वो आएंगे तो आप उनको देख के तो तस्वीर एक बनवानी है उनके साथ। नाज़िमुद्दीन साहब, प्लीज। Big applause for Nazimuddin Saab. He is one of the most active volunteer for Al-Mawrid Institute Canada. Most of the activities are happening due to him. Thank you so much for his. नहीं आप ये yeah. Now I request Daniel Hussain, please come on the stage. I request volunteers to come quickly so we can save our time, please. I request Bassam Abid to come on the stage, please.
Thank you.
Yeah. I request now Rabab Farooq to come on the stage, please. थोड़ा सा आगे. Yeah. I request Ali Hassan to come to the stage, please. I request Kamran Rizvi to come on the stage, please. Sir. Kisko? Now I request Muhammad Abdullah, please come on the stage, please. Now I request Rania Khan, if she is here. She's not here. I request Rabab Farooq, if you can come. I request Sarah Awais. I think she is not here today. And I'll request Rabab Farooq to also take her certificate. Now I request Zoha Bashir to come on the stage, please. Now I request Nibras Khan to come on the stage, please. Now I request Mahfouz Ilahi, please come on the stage, please. Now I request Zahid Bashir, sir, please come on the stage. I request Umair Hassan. I think he is not here. I request Hassan, Muhammad Hassan, sir, please come on the stage to receive his certificate. I request Muhammad Salim. If he is not here, I request Mahfouz Ilahi, please come to receive his certificate. Please keep clapping for the volunteers. And for Amjad Rana, he is coming on the way, but he is not here. Please clapping for him as well. But I ask these two to receive Mahfouz Ilahi, sir. I have here certificate for Sean Sheikh. He is on itikaf. He is not here. And we will deliver to him later. But I will request if Soban, if you can receive Sean's certificate from Dr. Khalid Zaid. Thank you so much. I have a certificate for Haya Mariam. I'll request Nazim Saab if he can receive for him, on her behalf. Haya Mariam. Here I have a certificate for Zille Rehab. She is also on her way. She is not yet here. I'll request Abdullah if you can receive for Zille Rehab, please. Huh? Yeah. Now I have two more certificates which belong to Montreal actually. Aisha Rahman, who is the team lead for youngsters, youth, and Siddiqa Sadiq, who is the director of Women Group. Both of the certificates I request who can receive on her behalf. Can you come, Ghazal, please? Yeah.
He's not mentioned the full name. He's nervous.
Yeah. So I request Ghazal Malik to receive these two certificates on behalf of Aisha Rahman and Siddiqa Sadiq. I have two certificates for the teachers, Barrister Zahid Bashir and Dr. Dr. Shakil Ahmed. I'll request Nazim Saab again to receive on behalf of Dr. Shakil Ahmed, please. And last but not least, I have two more. Nazim Saab, this is for you. Now I request you big claps for Dr. Ali Hassan Zaidi. Special thanks to him. He always get times to come here, and we always benefit from his insights. Thank you so much for you always. Yeah. Now I request Chair of the Board of Al-Mawrid, Abid Saab, if you come and you give certificate to Dr. Khalid Zahir. We are so privileged to have Dr. Khalid Zahir with us. Thank you so very much for him to be with us. And he is actually a blessing for us. And Khalid Saab, last, Barrister Zahid Bashir, just on the behalf of Barrister. Thank you so much for your patience. I know. Jazakallah khair. Zoha, please carry on.
So thank you very much to, again, all the volunteers. It's the volunteers that make some of these nights very successful. So it's really great to see everybody appreciated. Okay, we are honored tonight to hear from another distinguished scholar, Dr. Khalid Zahir. Dr. Zahir is a well-known Islamic scholar who studied the Quran under the guidance of Dr. Israr Ahmed, Maulana Amin Ahsan Islahi, and Javed Ahmed Ghamdi. He has taught at the top institutions in Pakistan, including the Aga Khan University, Lahore University of Management Sciences, University of Central Punjab, and the Haley College of Commerce. Currently, he serves as the Imam of Guelph Mosque in Canada, where he continues to impart knowledge and guidance to the Muslim community. He has deep understanding of Islam teachings, and his ability to relate to contemporary challenges make his voice an invaluable one. And I have to say, I have lots of friends who went to Laurier, and anytime we mention Dr. Khalid Zahir's voice or name, we have a lot of people who are excited to hear about him. So, and that's great. So after his talk, we will also have a Q&A session. So please feel free to note down any questions you may have. So, yeah.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I begin in the name of the God whose mercy is profound, immense, whose kindness is going to last forever. We are privileged to be going through the month of Ramadan yet again. And this statement of mine is, I can assure you, is not a formality. If you start counting the blessings of this blessed month, there are many. But I'm going to talk about the two most significant, prominent ones. I mentioned that they are significant because they've actually been pointed out by the Quran. One important blessing of the month of Ramadan is that it offers the opportunity to the believer to become muttaqi. The Quran says in verse 183 of Surah Al-Baqarah, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, believers, kutiba alaykumus siyam, fasting has been made obligatory on you. Kama kutiba alal lazina min qablikum, quite the same way as it was made obligatory on those who came before you. La'allakum tattaqun, so that you become muttaqi. There are at least two questions that arise. One, what is taqwa and who is a muttaqi? And the other is, how can fasting in the month of Ramadan lead to taqwa? Probably it would not be an exaggeration to say that the one command that you find in the Quran mentioned more than any other is ittaqullah. The translation is fear Allah. Be conscious of the presence of Allah. Be righteous. They all mean the same thing. They are interrelated. If you are conscious of the presence of the Almighty, you will remain within limits. You will be righteous. And that is what the Almighty tells us is the purpose of fasting during the month of Ramadan. Before I come to this question as to how fasting can lead to it, it does not automatically lead to it. It has the potential of leading to taqwa. The Almighty says, la'allakum tattaqun, so that you become God conscious. So it is an invitation to the believer who is fasting to try as best as he can to become conscious of the presence of the Almighty. What would happen if we become conscious of the presence of the Almighty? I think we will start becoming self-critical. We will start improving ourselves because of the fact that we are conscious that the Almighty knows what we are doing. This is something which is extremely important. Probably the most important attribute, quality that a human being, a believer can have in himself, herself. That you continue to evaluate yourself. You continue to question yourself. Why? Because you know that one day, on the day of judgment, the Almighty is going to question you. So as is the famous statement, it goes like this, Hasibu min qabli an tuhasabu. Make yourself accountable to yourself before you are held accountable. So that is God consciousness. We are leading a life wherein it seems apparently that we are free to do whatever we want to. There's nobody who can check us. And there are desires, there are temptations. We are weak, we are vulnerable. And we have been told that one day this freedom is going to be what we will be held responsible for, how well we used it. So fasting enables us to become conscious of the presence of the Almighty in that from morning till evening, we remain hungry and thirsty, like indeed right now we are. And we have all the resources at our disposal for us to be able to eat and drink, and yet we do not do it. Why? Because we are fasting. What does it mean? Because the Almighty has asked us not to eat and drink. That is exactly, precisely what God consciousness is. That you check yourself, you put yourself under the camera, the realization that you are being looked at. And this is an ongoing exercise. It has to be there, getting practiced all year round. But fasting is a very special way of enabling it to happen. If we can stay away from eating and drinking, despite the fact that food and drink is otherwise legitimate, even when we are really in need of it, simply because the Almighty has expected us to do it, well, the hope is that outside the month of Ramadan, we'll be able to control ourselves in matters which are otherwise unacceptable, illegitimate. It is because of this reason that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is reported to have said that the one who fasts and tell lies and acts upon lies, Allah is not interested in him remaining hungry and thirsty. I mean, what is the purpose of remaining hungry and thirsty when you are not conscious of the fact that the exercise that you're doing is actually meant to make you conscious of the Almighty's presence? So let's try as best as we can to become God conscious. And you know what? You cannot be God conscious. You cannot become God conscious on your own. It's not possible. I mean, it's a feeling of realization. How can you have that feeling? My feelings, honestly, they are not in my hands. They are given by the Almighty. And the Quran mentions that Allah chooses, He picks certain hearts for taqwa, God consciousness, to be instilled in them. It's mentioned in Surah Al-Hujurat regarding people who would lower their voices in the presence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Quran mentions about them, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ امْتَحَنَ اللَّهُ قُلُوبَهُمْ لِلتَّقْوَى. Such are the people, those who are so respectful to the Prophet that when they are in his company, they lower their voices. Such are the people whose hearts are chosen, picked by the Almighty for taqwa to be instilled. So all that we can do is to make a conscious effort and pray to the Almighty. And honestly, prayer is one thing that we can do. Nobody can stop us from doing it. And I tell you, if you pray for righteousness, if you pray for taqwa, the Almighty most certainly responds to it. It has to be sincere. And why should we pray for taqwa? Because that is what is going to lead us to salvation, to success. Why should we pray for taqwa? Because honestly, I'm talking about myself. I realize that I don't have it. I realize it. I realize that I go wrong. I realize that I'm weak. I realize that I'm tempted. And, I at times feel helpless. And it is only that strong realization that my Creator is watching me that can stop me, deter me from doing what is wrong. So while we are going through this experience of fasting, let's make this earnest dua to the Almighty that we get this most important gift of this month. I'm telling you, if we don't get it, we have lost something great, which is going to be a shame. So that is one important thing that the Quran has mentioned regarding the month of Ramadan. The other thing, and directly related other virtue of the month of Ramadan, is what again the Quran mentions in the same passage. This is verse 183, and 185 says, tells us the reason. And I tell you one thing, when you read the Quran and you read it with understanding, which is the only reason why you should read the Quran. What else could be the reason? It is a book of guidance, and you read the Quran for getting guided. You cannot get guided unless you understand it. And you start understanding it, well, you start questioning yourself to be able to understand better and more. So, obviously the question arises that, okay, we fast in order to become God conscious. Why during the month of Ramadan? I mean, why not Rabiul Awwal? Why not Zulhajj? Why not Muharram or any other month? The Quran answers it. Shahru Ramadan allazi unzila fihi al-Quran. The month of Ramadan is the month when the Quran was revealed. So the Almighty tells us that this month, great month, when we have been asked to fast in order to be able to have taqwa in us, this month has been chosen because this month has one particular night when the Quran began to be revealed. And thus, the entire month got this privilege that it is in this month that we fast. So the question is still not answered. Okay, so what is the purpose? What is the link? Well, the link is this. The verse mentions towards the very end, so that you thank the Almighty and you glorify Him. لِتُكَبِّرُ اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ. You glorify and do takbir of Allah on what He has guided you, on the way He has guided you. وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, and so that you be thankful. You would glorify Allah, you would say Allah is great, and you will thank Him only when you will be able to value what you have been given. I mean, if you don't value the Quran, why would you thank Him? And you can only value the Quran if you understand it properly. So it is no surprise that when the Quran says in this verse 185 of Surah Al-Baqarah that Shahru Ramadan allazi unzila fihi al-Quran, the month of Ramadan is the month in which the Quran was revealed. It doesn't stop there. It continues to mention and clarify. You know what the Quran is? Hudal lin-nas. It is the guidance for mankind. What is guidance? Well, we all need guidance. The world that we are living in is a confusing world. It's a puzzle. There are questions that we don't get answers to. Well, normally we are going through the routine of life, and probably we are enjoying life without even realizing that there are problems, there are challenges, there are tragedies that are around the corner. And why are they there? Who created me? Why did He create me? What am I expected to do? What should I do for me to be genuinely successful? Success is defined in a very narrow way by most people of the world. There could be only one success, honestly only one success, which should last. I mean, what success, is if a person achieves some happiness, some glory, some recognition, but only for a while. It all ends. This is what the Quran continues to remind us. It's all going to come to an end. So there's only one success, which is the eternal success. So the Quran gives us guidance for it and answers these questions. And you might say, the next question that would come to your mind is, okay, it guides us, fine, but it really is so difficult and complex book that only a very few selected people who are knowledgeable can understand. Well, we can have no idea. So it follows it up by saying, وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى. This guidance is clear. There are clear verses of guidance, even if you don't know the language. By the way, knowing the language is not a big problem, I tell you. You just have to put in some effort. And let me say that in this city, there is an organization, LQM, Learning Quran Mississauga. And I was amazed. They teach Quran and they teach it in a way that you are able to start learning it in a matter of months. Once a week, 2.5 hours running. And you know, the attendance of one class is something like 200 plus all over the world. Anyway, so it's a guidance which is clear. You've got no excuses. We have translations. And it is Al-Furqan. It distinguishes between right and wrong. It distinguishes clearly between what is acceptable to the Almighty and what is unacceptable. How can you ignore this book? Why would you not spare time to understand it? Why would you wait for your death to realize that you should have understood and learned it? So I think this month is also a very important, opportunity for us to have this realization, to make a firm commitment that we are going to read and understand the Quran. I'm telling you, we Muslims have not just done justice with the Quran. This book is amazing. It is beyond our imagination, the way it guides. We can't imagine how deep it is. There are layers after layers that are to be uncovered. We are doing in Al-Mawrid a very humble effort to understand and let others understand the Quran. But this is the month for the revival of the spirit of the Quran, for everybody to desire, wish, long for it. And if you pray to the Almighty, as I said in the case of taqwa, it is equally true in the case of the Quran as well. You ask the Almighty for you to be guided through the Quran, and He'll guide you. The time given to me is about to come to an end. We'll have question and answers, but I want to say one thing. I don't know whether you like it or not, but you know what? We Muslims have somehow stayed away from getting the true spirit of our religion, whether fasting, Quran, Salat, Hajj, or anything. Because we have a concept which somehow makes us feel satisfied and content that what we are doing is fine. And it is repeated, hammered over and over again. And the end result is that we are distracted by this understanding, as a consequence of which we lose the real spirit. And the concept is the concept of sawab, of reward. You read the Quran, you get reward. Why do you read it? Because you get reward. Why do you pray? You get reward. Why do you fast? Because you get rewarded. Why are you going for Hajj? Because you get rewarded. I am not denying the fact that you get rewarded, but reward itself is not the purpose. In fasting, the purpose is to have God consciousness. In reading the Quran, the purpose is to get guided. In doing Hajj, the purpose is to have a spiritual link, contact with the Almighty. In Zakat, the spirit is to help out the poor. When you are going to do these things properly, to please the Almighty, you are then going to be rewarded. You are bypassing the real spirit and going for something that was dependent on this spirit. I think it's a big loss. So let's make a resolve and pray to the Almighty that in this great month, we are able to become better Muslims by becoming God conscious and by having a real, genuine inclination to understand the Quran. And I tell you, you pray from deep inside and you get your prayers responded to by the Almighty, and inshallah He's going to respond. So my time is over. Aqulu qawli hadha wa astaghfirullahi wa lakum. Did you say that we'll have QAs right now or later? Okay.
Thank you, Doctor. I'll request Rania Khan. If you can come here for any questions, you can raise hand, yeah. Javed sir, do we have mic without wireless? Thank you, Rania. Please take this mic.
What?
Assalamu alaikum, sir. Sir, due to nature of my job, I was unable to fast for almost 15 years. And I was not allowed to fast even on weekends. So I missed those 15 years. And that job continued till recently I retired. So I couldn't fast even after those 15 years. But now, fasting for almost counting should be completed, as I know, but fasting in view of those 15 years seems to be very difficult. And can I pay any kafara or anything, any alternate solution to it? Thank you.
Okay. What I'll say is going to be my opinion, and obviously people can disagree with me. I think what you need to do, and I can see that you are, mashallah, physically okay, fit. So for you, making payment, in my ordinary opinion, is not the way out. What you should do is that make an intention that for as long as the Almighty would allow you, you would continue to fast and make a routine of yours. You know, you are lucky that you have a choice. You can pick the winter season when the days are short, and I'm not too sure, twice a week, thrice a week, make it a routine. And have this intention that this you are doing in order to make up for the fasts that you've missed. May Allah give you a long life, but even if you pass away before completing the number, inshallah it's going to be accepted by Him.
Thank you very much. As always, it's a pleasure listening to you, Khalid Saab. I had a question, and maybe it needs more explanation. You said that, taqwa is given to you by God. Then what about those people, if God has not given them that enlightenment, it's such a loss for them as well, and is it their fault, or how does that work? Because some people, you're right, you can't. You keep on telling them it's a book of God. You expect that people would just gravitate towards it, but they're not interested. So is it their fault, or is it something? How does God choose?
Yeah, you see, this topic is probably one of the most discussed topics in the Quran. Guidance. Who gets guidance and who does not? Quite often we get confused when we read verses like, it is God who guides and he misguides. And people conclude that, well, it's his prerogative, he chooses some and doesn't choose others. But we don't read the entire verse. So in one of the famous verses regarding this topic is verse 56 of Surah Al-Qasas, Surah number 28. Well, I remembered this number because Surah Al-Qasas is Surah number 28, multiplied by 2, it's 56. So verse 56 says, Innaka la tahdi man ahbabta. O Prophet, you cannot guide whom you will. Walakin Allah yahdi man yasha. Instead, it is Allah who guides whom he wills. The verse ends by saying, Wa huwa a'lamu bil muhtadin. And he knows who deserve to be guided. So Allah looks at the keenness, the interest that is there in an individual to be guided. Allah has decided it. It's a very firm decision of the Almighty. A decision in which he does not even allow his dear prophets to interfere. And the decision is that the one who will take interest in getting guided will get guided. And the one who will not take interest in getting guided will not be guided. Now you might ask, how can one take interest in getting guided? Well, honestly, the answer is that this life, the way it has been designed, offers you from time to time in your lives opportunities to get guided. There are difficulties, there are challenges, there are tragedies, there are losses. And even if you are supremely successful otherwise in your life, there are moments when you feel completely at a loss, dejected, and looking for answers. So Allah is always there, allow me to say, eagerly waiting for you to seek guidance. Once somebody seeks guidance from here, deep inside, he'll certainly guide. But if all that is happening in life does not cause a person to be inclined to seek guidance, you cannot do anything about it. Except for the fact that pray that this person that you want to get guided should actually seek guidance himself, herself.
Assalamu alaikum ji. That's all. My question is in Urdu, and I hope you will.
You are speaking good English, sir. Where are you? Oh yes, yeah, please.
Assalamu alaikum ji. That's all. My question is in Urdu, and I hope you will not mind it. And it is Surah Al-Mawrid, ayat number 5. इसमें है कि कुल पकीज़ा चीज़ें जो आज आपके तुम्हारे लिए हलाल की गई और अहले किताब का ज़िबा तुम्हारे लिए हलाल है और तुम्हारा ज़िबा इनके लिए हलाल. प्लीज़ इस हिस्से के ज़रा वजाहत फरमा दीजिए.
Right. Actually, I was looking for Mike. Mike, where are you? Not this one. Oh yeah, he's there. Mike has, yeah, Mike. I have to kind of translate, paragraph your question in English and answer in English because my friend Mike is there. And I respect his presence. Mike, the question is that the Quran says that all good, pure food is allowed to the believer. And the food of the people of the book is also allowed to believers to consume. So what does it mean? My answer is that, look here, when you read the Quran, you should always try to understand the Quran as one consistent text. We should not pick verses from here and there, isolating them from the context, and then putting meanings to them. So we know that, for instance, pork is forbidden, haram. We know that when a halal animal is slaughtered in the name of anyone other than Allah, other than God, it's not allowed. We know from Surah Al-An'am, Surah number 6, verse 121, that if an animal is slaughtered and not God's name or anybody else's name is mentioned, no name is mentioned, it's still not allowed. Now, when the Almighty has given the permission to believers to also be able to eat from the food of the people of the book, what it means is that the food that they serve you with, which is halal, not the haram food. You cannot have alcohol while in the company of the people of the book. So the next question that you can ask is, that is it that the Quran is suggesting that if somebody is not in the category of the people of the book, like Hindus, we can't have food with them at all? No, that's not what the statement is. If you have Hindu friends or any other friends, and you have vegetarian food, there's no problem. What this particular verse is clarifying is that when an animal is slaughtered in the name of Allah, in the name of the God, there are three conditions. Well, this verse is mentioning one condition, I'm mentioning two others as well. One condition is that the person who is slaughtering a halal animal in the name of Allah himself should be a believer in one God, which is what the people of the book are. So if somebody who is a polytheist and is a butcher, and he slaughters an animal to have some customers from amongst the Muslims in the name of Allah, that meat is not going to be acceptable, because the person believes in several gods. Likewise, if no name is mentioned, even then it is not acceptable. And if there is somebody who believes in one God and slaughters in the name of Allah, but slaughters at a place where ordinarily animals are slaughtered in the name of deities other than Allah, that too is haram. So I hope this confusing answer makes some sense to you. Yeah. Yeah.
In flights, sometimes halal is not available, and I do order the kosher. So is it okay?
Yeah. Yeah, kosher is fine. I'm told actually that kosher is of two types, but I don't know. I mean, Jews are quite as careful about, slaughtering the animal in the name of Allah, and rightly. So I think that's safe to consume.
We'll take last question for Dr. Khalid Zahid from Sayyid Yasir Imam. And before that, I'll take a chance to request you all to welcome warmly our friend Michael Merkel, and also Mark. They are special guests for us. So thank you so much for joining us. You're most welcome. Now, Yasir Imam, sir, you can ask. And please don't hesitate to ask questions in Urdu. You can translate, I think so.
We'll try. Yeah.
Thank you, Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum, Khalid Sahab, and everyone. Such a great event and projects. This is first time for me. So I'm apologizing my other fellows over here. I'm going to ask my questions in Urdu, and I'm going to request if I can get the response in Urdu also. It will be very helpful for my family.
So what, you want to deprive Mike of it, and you speak such good English? What's going on? We have kids, they are more comfortable in English.
Sometimes we do proxy for other people, yeah. So,
okay.
But I leave it on your policies.
Yeah, don't mind me, please.
Yeah. The question ये है कि this is the month to understand Quran. मैं कुरान समझने की कोशिश कर रहा हूँ, और बहुत सारी इन्फॉर्मेशन हैंडी है मोबाइल फ़ोन के ऊपर. मैं जब YouTube लगाता हूँ और किसी आयत को समझने की कोशिश करता हूँ, तो बहुत सारे उलमा उसके अंदर मुख्तलिफ तरह की वजाहतें फरमा रहे हैं. फिर सवाल ये पैदा होता है कि बाज़ दफ़ा ऐसा होता है कि एक आलिम एक बात कर रहा है और बकिया उलमा, जिनको आप कह सकते हैं जमहूर, वो दूसरी बात कर रहे हैं. तो इस सूरत में मैं उसके अंदर क्या अखज़ करूं, उसके अंदर क्या मेरे पास पैमाना होना चाहिए कि क्या चीज़ सही है इसके अंदर?
Basically, the question is that there are so many interpretations. So what should I do? Which one should I go for? You see, the Quran has not claimed that you will start reading it and you will get guidance immediately. You'll have to struggle and strive. But never ever forget the fact that the ultimate decision is going to be based on the Quran itself. Now you might say that I don't know the Quran. I'm trying to understand the Quran. So how can I make the Quran as the criterion? I can tell you it happens. Even when you know very little Quran and you have taken this firm decision that you will not accept any opinion which conflicts with the Quran, keep asking people. If some scholar is making sense to you in explaining a certain verse, accept it. Don't have any biases. But as and when you come to learn about the fact that somebody else is making more sense, what does that mean? Well, the apparent translation, what it says, tallies with what this other scholar is saying, and let it be an ongoing process. Honestly, it still is an ongoing process for me. It can never stop. The only thing that the Almighty expects from you is that while deciding about what is the correct understanding, your judgment should be based on the Quranic text and nothing else. So for example, there is somebody who is explaining the Quran beautifully because he has command over the language, he tells you stories and so on, and you're fascinating. Well, tell yourself, wait a minute, I'm not too sure whether this is what the verse is saying, because apparently the translation is this. So keep engaging the person and keep talking to yourself, keep finding out, and inshallah I can assure you that the Almighty would lead you to the right understanding. But never stop at any one opinion unless you're satisfied that the verse is exactly what this gentleman is explaining. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khalid Zahir. I know we had lots of questions. I had a lot kind of going through too. I bother him lots after, so please, I know I'm sorry we had to cut off the questions. So thank you everyone though. But as we continue our evening of reflection and learning, it's my honor to invite Professor Ali Zaidi to deliver his address. Professor Zaidi is an associate professor and chair of global studies in religion and culture at Wilfrid Laurier University. He is the recipient of the Laurier Teaching Award for Excellence in Internationalization and the Laurier Merit Award. His deep insights into religion, culture, and global affairs make him a distinguished voice in the academic and interfaith community. We are absolutely privileged to have him with us today, and we look forward to his reflections on the significance of Ramadan and the Quran. After his talk, we'll also have a short Q&A where you'll have an opportunity to engage with him directly.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Thank you very much. I'm really honored to be back with you and friends. This invitation that Al-Mawrid has offered me, I'm more than delighted and more than grateful. Honestly, they gave me the certificate and I said to myself, I don't know if I've earned it yet. You have to wait till after the talk whether or not I deserve the certificate. But I hope I can earn the certificate and earn your invitation. You'll excuse me if my energy is a little bit low and my voice is a little bit flat. As Dr. Khalid Zahir said, you know, that Ramadan is this month where the body breaks down. And I'm going to attend to that a little bit in the conversation today. The topic that we were given is Ramadan and the Quran. And as I was making my way here, my wife and I were having a conversation and we were saying, well, the topic is broad. But she said, well, how do you know you're not going to repeat what Dr. Khalid Zahir Sahib is going to be saying? And I thought, yeah, that's a problem. It's possible we may say the same things. But I said the topic is broad enough that inshallah there's plenty of space for us to have difference. I regret now that when Brother Faisal asked me about participating, I said, yeah, but I want Dr. Khalid Zahir to go first. He's more learned, he's more senior, he knows the Quran. I realized as I was sitting there that was a mistake because he's a hard act to follow. I should have said, let me go first and then you can have the main act. Anyway, here I am. There's 4 points that I'd like to make in my presentation today. One is about fasting during Ramadan and our sense of human dependency or on God, or the opposite of that, our false sense of human independence from God. So the first is the sense of human dependency on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how we in fact are completely and utterly dependent upon Him. The second point I want to make in today's conversation is about fasting as an ancient practice. Saum as something that is an atiq amal, a very ancient practice. Although, of course, there are many variations in that practice and how it is done. The third point I want to make is about ego death. And I see our friend Dr. Sadia Krampal is here, who has spoken about ego in the past to Al-Mawrid events. But how does Ramadan, how does fasting affect our nafs, our ego, and how do we subdue that ego? And then ironically, how sometimes Ramadan can give rise to the opposite of that, the growth of the ego. And then finally, for some of the younger people here, I want to talk about how fasting is relevant in particular to our late modern age. Why it's even more relevant now than perhaps ever before. Okay, so those are the 4 points. I gave you the thesis before I went in, because anyway, because of the shortness of time. Now God knows best, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best when, where, and to whom He reveals His message. And we are not privy to that knowledge. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows when to deliver it, to whom to deliver it, where to deliver it. Having said that, surely there is something about the Prophet's practice of fasting and withdrawing, meaning making itikaf, from Meccan society during the month of Ramadan, even before wahi or revelation came down to him. Surely there is something about the Prophet preparing himself, in a sense, preparing his body, preparing his soul for enlightenment. So there is something about the Prophet's practice that corresponds to the sending down, nazil hona, the revelation coming down to the Prophet, and the Prophet having prepared himself, his body and his soul to receive this. Now the Prophet encounters the Quranic message, as we know in Surah Iqra, for the very first time in the cave of Hira during the month of Ramadan. And we are told that the first time that the verses came down, the first 5 verses of Surah Iqra, they came down in the last 10 days of Ramadan. Now, this was the prophetic practice before wahi, before revelation. He would withdraw from Meccan society, go into the cave, and he would fast and he would abstain. In other words, he was preparing his body and his soul for enlightenment. And he was withdrawing from his society. Now I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the tawfiq to help us gain some mastery over our body and soul, as Dr. Zahir was saying, gain mastery over our body and soul so that we may gain spiritual enlightenment during this month of Ramadan, and not just see it as a way of reward, but of enlightenment. So fasting and human dependency. As I just mentioned, the first 5 verses of the Quran were revealed during the month of Ramadan, and as you all know, these verses from Surah Iqra, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Iqra, Bismi Rabbika alladhi khalaq, khalaqa al-insana min alaq, Iqra wa rabbuka al-akram, alladhi allama bil-qalam, allama al-insana ma lam ya'lam. The Prophet is told during the month of Ramadan, the first revelation, read or recite in the name of thy Lord who creates man or human beings from a clot. Read, and thy Lord is the most bounteous, who teaches by the pen, teaches man, teaches human beings what they know not. By the way, you were talking about translations and all these apps. Translation I'm using is by Marmaduke Pickthall. It's one of the earlier English translations. It's a scholarly translation, very close to the original Arabic, and it also has a certain fluid flow to it that I appreciate. So those are the first 5 verses of the Quran. We know, okay, we've heard that often. But what are the next 3 verses in Surah Iqra? In the next 3 verses following these initial 5, we see that God condemns human rebellion based on the false impression that we are self-sufficient or that we are independent from God. So right after having said, read in the name of thy Lord who creates and teaches, we hear these verses. Kalla, which, by the way, some Arab friends have told me is one of the strongest words that are used in the Quran. Kalla, no or nay. Kalla, inna l-insana ila yatqwa. Ar-ra'a istaghna. Inna ila rabbika raj'a. Nay, but verily man is rebellious that he thinks himself independent. Lord, lo, unto your Lord is your return. So we are reminded here of the essential relationship between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and human beings. That you are not independent. And if you think so, then you are rebelling against God. We see the same verse or the same thing in Surah Al-Fatir, Surah 35, verse 15. I won't read the Arabic for interest of time, but in the translation says, Ya ayyuhan nas, O people, Allah Ta'ala is Al-Ghani and Al-Hamid. Let me read the Arabic. Ya ayyuhan nas, antum al-fuqara ilallah. Antum al-fuqara ilallah. You, O human beings, you are the poor in relation to God. Wallahu huwa al-Ghani al-Hamid. And God is the Ghani. He is the rich. He is the independent. And He is the praiseworthy. Now, what could be the relation between our false sense of independence and fasting in Ramadan? What does fasting do? In the vernacular, when I'm talking to my friends and my children, I say, look, Ramadan is a boot camp. It is a spiritual and it is a physical boot camp. It breaks us down physically, mentally. We are deprived of sleep. We are deprived of food. We are deprived of water. You know, it's become a meme, actually. My non-Muslim colleagues and friends, they'll say, not even water? And of course, it's become a meme right on the t-shirts. Not even water. Pani bining. It's a boot camp. But it breaks us down so that we can be rebuilt into something better, something more enlightened. So Ramadan tries to break us down in order to weaken the body and its passions so that you realize that you're actually quite dependent, not just on food and water and sleep, but more importantly, you are dependent upon the ultimate source of that nourishment, of that water. Food is a vehicle, it's a vessel. Water is a vessel to provide for our nourishment. The ultimate source is what we are dependent on. We learn through Ramadan, through fasting, that we are dependent on Ar-Razaq, on the sustainer, one of the names of God, the provider. And as Dr. Khalid Zahir recited that famous verse from Surah Baqarah, chapter 2, verse 183, when we're told that fasting is mandatory for us, O you who believe, fasting has been prescribed for you, it has been written for you, even as it was prescribed for those before you, that you may become muttaqi, that you may have taqwa, that you may ward off evil, different translations. God consciousness, Dr. Zahir said. Now what I want to focus on in this verse is that aspect where it says, fasting is prescribed for you even as it was prescribed for those before you. That is to say, fasting before the institution of the fast of Ramadan. So you know that the Muslim community was not always fasting during the month of Ramadan. It was during the Prophet's mission that at some point the fasting of Ramadan becomes obligatory. It wasn't like that right from the beginning. In fact, the Muslim community, the very early Muslim community, would fast 3 days of each month. And according to some classical authorities, these 3 days might be the days of the full moon, so the 13th or the 14th and the 15th of a given month. Or some other classical authorities say, no, it would be the beginning and the middle and the end of a given month. So there is disagreement amongst the classical sources about what was the Muslim practice of fasting before the institution of Ramadan as obligatory. And there was subsequent disagreement as to whether these 3 days that Muslims used to fast were then abrogated, meaning removed once Ramadan was instituted, or they remained. But why does the Quran invoke the fasting of those before? Right? Alladhina min qablikum. Of those, fasting has been prescribed for you as it was prescribed for those before you. Who are those before you? According to classical thinkers like Fakhruddin al-Razi, those before you, alladhina min qablikum, may refer to the Christians or to the Ahl al-Kitab, the Jews, or it might refer to all people in general. Now, interestingly, every group, every wisdom tradition, every deen, every religion has had some form of fasting in its teachings. Now, of course, how that fast is done varies from community to community. But what we should take from this is that the principle is the same, although the path, meaning if the deen underlying all of this is the same, the minhaj is different, the path that different communities take is slightly different, the practical method that we follow, the shirat, the practical method of fasting may be different, but the purpose remains the same. And this principle is quite clear in Surah Ma'idah, chapter 5, verse 58, which is translated as, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, for each, we have appointed a divine law and a traced out way. Divine law meaning the shara, and the traced out way, the minhaj. So the deen remains the same even though they may have a different shara, practical conduct, and the minhaj might be different. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, had Allah ta'ala willed, He could have made you one community. And I think this gets to that issue of interpretation. It was asked over here, how do I know who to follow? There are differences of opinion, and we recognize that, and that is also part of God's blessings for us. Had Allah willed, He could have made you all one community. Now, if we look at the different methods of fasting from Ahlul Kitab, we see that on their holiest of holy days, Yom Kippur, the Jews fast from food and water and other aspects of normal life for 25 hours. From sunset of one day to sunset of the other day. 25-hour fast for Jews on Yom Kippur. And we know Christians, for instance, right now are in their period of Lent before Easter. They fast for 40 days, where they give up, in the Orthodox Christian tradition, they give up meat, eggs, dairy, leavened bread, and so on and so forth. So different communities have been practicing fasting in different ways, trying to achieve enlightenment or taqwa in their own way, God consciousness. Interestingly, the Quran refers to fasting of Hazrat Maryam alayhi salam as well, in a very different way, and it uses the same word of Sawm, the Arabic word Sawm for fasting. In Surah Maryam, chapter 19, verse 26, Sayyidatuna Maryam is instructed to abstain from talking to people. And the Quran uses the same word, Sawm, fast. Okay, this is the translation from chapter 19, verse 26, Surah Maryam. Hazrat Maryam, Sayyidina Maryam is being instructed, so eat and drink and be consoled. This is when she's about to give birth to Hazrat Isa alayhi salam. So eat and drink and be consoled. And if thou meets any mortal, say, lo, I have vowed a fast unto the beneficent, and may not speak this day to any mortal. So on the one hand, she's being told, eat and drink and be consoled. And then on the other hand, there is the word Sawm being used to say, fast from talking to people. So we understand that fasting can take many different forms for different communities. As I was preparing this talk, I came across a short article by a scholar named Yunus Mirza in a magazine called Maidan Online. It's an e-magazine. And this is what Yunus Mirza has to say about this. Quote, commentators generally understanding fasting in this verse to be silence, samt, with some even saying that silence was included in some of the early readings of the verse, Psalm was samt. At-Tabari narrates a tradition that the children of Israel would, quote, fast from talk as they would fast from food, with the only exception being the remembrance of God. At-Tabari also notes that fasting at that time would be to fast from food, drink, and speaking to people. But the fast of Islam now only refrains from food and drink. Al-Qurtubi, another classical scholar, further explains the link between fasting and silence because he said, fasting is abstaining and silence is abstaining from speech. So clearly for the early Muslims, the word Psalm had several meanings beyond simply the fast of Ramadan or the recommended fast of the Prophet on certain days of the month or certain days of the week. In other words, the word Psalm has meant more than just fasting from food and water. this is what Dr. Zahir was saying. Abstaining from food and water is not sufficient. Of course, on the outward level it is. But if you aspire for more, you have to go beyond that. Now, the third point I wanted to make was about ego death. And I realize we're coming 7:15, so we're a few more minutes. Yeah. If we go back to those words about fasting was prescribed for those before you, we can see that the Quran is teaching us that self-denial has been part of most religions, as I said. Now, we also commented on the verses from Surah Iqra about man being rebellious, human beings being rebellious and thinking themselves independent. So we may say that one of the goals of fasting is breaking down not only the body, but also the nafs, the ego, so that it can be redirected and recognize its original creator and its utter dependence upon its creator. Ironically, sometimes even fasting can do the opposite. What do I mean by this? We all know people who take fasting to the extreme. People for whom fasting can produce its own sense of egotism. They push through fasting no matter what the circumstances. So the Quran provides exceptions for those who are traveling, for women who may be pregnant, for those who are elderly, for those who are sick. And yet we know people who say, no. I can push through this, I can do this. And I know of somebody who was a diabetic, was advised not to fast, ended up fasting, ultimately as a result had a stroke and became very ill. What's happening here? What's happening here is that the ego is overriding the hikmah, the wisdom of the Quran, which is telling us about the mercy and the allowances that God has given us. But we know many examples of this, and in fact there's an example from the hadith literature as well. In Sahih Bukhari, there's a companion named Abdullah ibn Amr, who not only fasted every day but also abstained from family relations until the Prophet met him one day, and the Prophet said, how do you fast? And he said, oh, I fast every day. And he said, how long does it take you to recite the Quran? And he said, oh, I complete it every night. And the Prophet said, fast for 3 days every month and then complete the Quran once a month. And Abdullah ibn Umar says, I can do more than that. And the Prophet says, fast for 3 days every week. And Abdullah ibn Umar says, I can do more than that. And the Prophet says, do not fast for 2 days in a row, fast for 1 day and then take a break. And Abdullah ibn Umar says, I can do more than that. And the Prophet says, observe the best of fast, which is the fast of David, meaning 1 day fast, then abstain from fasting, then fast, then abstain from fasting, and recite the Quran once in every 7 nights. My point here is, sometimes our ego, which we're supposed to suppress during the month of Ramadan, gets the better of us, and we say, oh, I can do this, and I can do more than even what God has asked me to do. This is a form of egotism. That the nafs is somehow thinking it's even stronger than what God has given us allowance for. So let's be mindful that we don't, that actually we take advantage of the allowances that God has given us and the exceptions that God has given us. Okay, lastly, I just want to talk about the relevance of fasting to our day. Of course, the fasting prescription is universal, but I think that it's more relevant now than ever before. And the reason I think that it's relevant more than ever before is because of the consumption that we witness in our modern day society. One of the trends that I have witnessed, and people, my students, as a professor, I get young students coming to me, and some of them say, yeah, you know, I'm motivated by social justice and I want to do good in the world. So rather than abstaining from food, drink, and water, let me do good, put good into the world. And of course, the two are not mutually exclusive. You can put good into the world. Sadaqah is putting good into the world, doing acts of charity. But there's also that element of withdrawal and abstention that is critical. But some of the people say, no, I don't want to abstain. I don't want to withdraw from the world. I want to do good. I want to act in terms of social justice. So what they say is that, why do I have to fast, which is a passive thing, when instead I can do something more active? The problem here is that these dear students of mine who are social activists understand doing good and social action only in an active sense and not in a passive sense. because the world pulls us in more than ever before. And it makes us participate in consumption, even for good causes. But abstinence from consumption, withdrawal from daily routine is needed more than ever. If we think about fasting not simply as abstaining from food and water, but a more wide-ranging abstinence or withdrawal. For example, from the Surah Maryam, we hear this example of withdrawing from the world, not talking for a period of time. Our friend Shan Sheikh, who received the certificate, is on itikaf right now. He's in a period of withdrawal for 10 days. If we think about fasting as abstinence and not simply from food and drink, then we are actually changing the world through our passive actions as much as through our active actions. Lastly, my teacher, Professor Sayyid Hussein Nasr, says what Islam does for Muslims is that it makes, by making Ramadan incumbent on every single one of us, is it takes what would have been something for specialists in other religions, like monks or priests or rabbis who would fast for a very long extended period of time. It makes each one of us common believers into specialists. It raises us to this level that we are expected to do something that only specialists would have done for a long period of time in other religious traditions. So it elevates us rather than pulling us down. Of course, rising to these heights of spiritual enlightenment is never easy. And the same person will find it easier at some periods in their life than at others. Of course, there are seasons of a life. We hear, if you're working in certain circumstances, you may not be able to. At other circumstances, you may be able to. The point is, we have to keep trying. May Allah Ta'ala give us the tawfiq to keep trying. And ultimately, may Allah Ta'ala accept from us the good and what we forget and forgive us. Allahu A'lam.
Thank you to both. That was a great way, I think, to kind of do a refresh for the next few days. I know we are tight on time, so we'll take 2 quick questions for Professor Ali Zaidi, and then we will... Any questions? Yes.
My question would be very easy. One thing is that we could maybe start a fast of the cell phone, just as a comment. The other thing is maybe enlightenment. If you can elaborate on what is the path of enlightenment and what is the destination we're going to. It could mean a lot of things.
Okay, so the question is, fasting, as I was saying, if it's more than food and water, it could mean fasting from the cell phone. I think we should incorporate that kind of fasting into our fasting from food and water and intimate relations and so on. There's no reason why we can't incorporate it. I find fasting from the cell phone harder than fasting from food and water, to be honest, right? And maybe this is something that we should think about in our own time. The second part of the question was, what is the path to enlightenment and what is the destination of enlightenment? I suppose it depends on each individual, right? Because we start from different beginnings and we'll end at different beginnings. We'll end at different points. Somebody who's starting from, somebody who's received a lot of tarbiyah, a lot of training, a lot of discipline, their starting point is already further advanced than, say, mine. So their enlightenment will be further than mine. The end point is not important, I think. It's the journey of enlightenment, the path of enlightenment. I'll give you an example. When I went for Hajj many years, more than a decade ago, I was sitting there reciting the Quran, and there was a person next to me, Haji, who was reading very intently, but I realized that after about 20 minutes, he had never turned the page. And then I looked over, and actually I noticed that he was reading the Qaida, the Alif, Ba, Ta. And I thought to myself, Dr. Zaid, forgive me about this point about sawab, about reward. And I thought to myself, who's receiving more sawab here? Me, who's turning page after page after page, or this man who's struggling to read Alif, Ba, Ta? And I thought to myself, he is actually struggling more than I am. And so his reward is more than mine, because it's the effort that matters, not the end point. Enlightenment is a question of jihad, of struggle, jihad karna, to struggle in the path. Whatever it leads you to, hopefully is better than where you started. That's the end point. I don't think I can tell you what your end point is, what your end point is, what my end point is. It'll be different, as long as it's spiritually uplifting, inshallah.
How did you say that was an easy question?
We'll do one more quick. We'll do one more quick question if anyone has. No? I think you've fulfilled everyone's questions, and we're on to the everyone's excited for.
I think it's because it's Ramadan and we're at the end of the fast, and that's where we're at.
Okay, so thank you again, Dr. Khalid Zahir and Professor Ali Zaidi. Like we said, I think it's a really great refresh for as we come to the end of Ramadan. So very quickly, at the end announcement. So if anybody does want to buy the Forbidden Words game that was created by Aisha Rahman, who is the team leader of youth, please buy it from reception, just at the back, close to the door. You know, just hearing a lot about some of the great work that AMIC does. If you are interested in joining a member, these forms are also available at reception. And don't hesitate with any questions about the group. You know, to bring to the team as well. So for Iftar and Maghrib, as we approach Maghrib time, just very, very quick, and then I think we'll get right to food. But we do kindly request that please let ladies proceed first for Iftar, followed by the gentlemen. Please be mindful of other people that take food, just so that everyone can be served comfortably. We're all coming on, 14 hours today? How many? Yeah, 14-ish hours today. So. And for Maghrib will be offered right here at the venue immediately after breaking the fast. So please follow the directions of our volunteers for the designated prayer areas. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And thank you again to Dr. Khalid Zahir and Professor Ali Zaidi. Thank you.